Right, welcome to the Explainer. We've got a massive, urgent topic to get through today, so let's dive straight into it without any messing. Just look at the absolute size of that figure. Let that sink in for a second. That right there is the towering, inescapable reality of the housing and rent crisis in Ireland today. We're not easing into this topic purely because our young people aren't being eased in either. This massive reality is the very engine driving our young professionals, our tradespeople, our nurses, and our teachers straight out the door and up to the departures board. Putting a basic roof over your head has reached an absolute breaking point for working families. Section 1. The new emigration wave. Let's trace this back a bit because context here is absolutely crucial, isn't it? Back in the 1980s, emigration was driven by deep economic depression. Sure, there were simply no jobs. Fast forward then to 2008, post-Celtic Tiger crash, the bottom totally fell out of the property market and the jobs just vanished overnight. Young people had to leave just to find a wage. But the 2020s? Well, this is a completely different story altogether. Today's young working families are packing their bags and leaving an economy that is, on paper anyway, absolutely booming. Jobs aplenty, multinationals everywhere. But the actual housing infrastructure to support the workers, that is completely fractured. And the physical reality of this crisis isn't found in stuffy economic reports. It's found in the hallways of ordinary homes across the country. The sight of packed suitcases sitting by the front door, the departures boards filling up with flights to Perth and Vancouver, fresh Irish passports getting stamped for one-way travel. This is becoming the grim norm for families all over again. For an entire generation now, the local rite of passage isn't buying your first car or putting a deposit on a house anymore. It's booking that long-haul flight out of Dublin Airport.
Section 2. The rent generation divide. What we are really looking at here is a stark, deep divide right down the middle of Irish society. It's a tale of two Irelands, really. On one side, you've got the more established, generally older generation of Irish homeowners. If you bought your house 20 years ago, you might be sitting fairly comfortably right now, pretty well insulated from the worst of the rental chaos. But on the other side of that line is the younger generation, the new workforce, and they are taking the absolute brunt of this crisis. It's driven a massive wedge between those who have secure, affordable housing and a youth demographic that feels totally locked out of the very concept of homeownership or even secure renting.
When you actually sit down and look at the raw maths of it all, you quickly realize this isn't about young people mismanaging their money or buying too many fancy coffees. Contrast the average take-home pay of a young working family with these astronomical rent prices. It is a mathematical impossibility for young professionals to put a roof over their heads without handing over practically all their hard-earned wages to a landlord. You literally cannot make the sums work to save for a future, let alone live comfortably today.
Section 3. The no future sentiment.
No future. Think about that. It is an awful thing to hear. A bright, hardworking, highly educated generation say there is simply no future for them in their own home country. This isn't just frustration, this is a profound sense of defeat. When you do absolutely everything you were asked to do, go to college, get a trade, land a good job, and you still find yourself living in your childhood bedroom at 30 years of age because rent is too high, well, that no future sentiment takes root deep in the psyche. And the consequence of that dark outlook is this emotional sunset. They're not leaving because they want a grand adventure. They're leaving because they are just desperately seeking a chance at a viable, independent life. But think of the emotional cost for the working families left behind. The mom and dad standing at the airport gates, watching their kids head off into the sunset, knowing those Sunday dinners will now be replaced by WhatsApp video calls across 12 different time zones. It fractures the family unit in a way that data just cannot measure. Section 4. Bound for Australia and Canada. So where exactly is all this brilliant young talent fleeing to? Well, the numbers make it brilliantly clear. The vast majority are heading straight for Australia and Canada. These two nations are heavily dominating the departures, basically rolling out the red carpet for young Irish tradespeople, healthcare workers, and tech professionals. Places like Sydney, Toronto, and Calgary are reaping the incredible benefits of Ireland's world-class education system, and they are scooping up our talent by the absolute plane load. And to be honest with you, it's easy to see why they're going. Just compare the viable living opportunities, the balance of wages to rent, in Australia and Canada against the severe crisis back home. Young workers are finding they can actually get a fair crack of the whip over there. They're finding a decent quality of life, an ability to rent a proper place, and actually save money at the end of the month. Things they simply cannot do right now in Cork, Dublin, or Galway. So they're voting with their feet. Section 5. Impact on working families. This all ripples back to create a really clear, terrifying domino effect here at home. Step 1, the youth are forced out by the sheer lack of affordable housing. Step 2, we see the immediate, massive loss of these young professionals, tradespeople, and creatives to places like Australia and Canada. And step 3, this places a severe, totally unsustainable strain on Ireland's remaining domestic workforce. Think about it. If you drive the youth out, who is left to staff the wards in our hospitals? Who is left to stand at the top of the classroom and teach our kids? Who is going to pour the concrete and build the very houses we so desperately need to fix this crisis in the first place? The remaining workforce is left carrying the heavy burden of an economy that is suddenly missing a massive chunk of its most energetic generation.
Which brings us to the ultimate question, and it's one that every single policymaker and citizen needs to be asking right now. If our young talent, literally the lifeblood of our nation, is forced to pack their bags and build their brilliant futures in Sydney or Toronto, who is left to build Ireland's future? Thanks a million for joining me for this explainer. Think hard about what this all means for the country moving forward. Until next time, take care of yourselves.